He rushes outside to see flames blazing and smoke billowing. The knight tells the soldiers to stay calm and get people to extinguish the fire. But the soldier shouts that it's spreading and water won't do a thing. Hearing this, Duke Francis is shocked once again. The soldier explains that not only will water not put it out, but it will actually spread the flames further. Another soldier suddenly appears, likely with some bad news, revealing that the fire has already reached the city and their troops can't contain it. It's spreading fast. The knight is shocked once again, and this time he's utterly terrified. When he thinks about unstoppable fire, only the work of witches comes to mind, and he's sure that Garcia is enlisting their help. Still, he rallies his soldiers not to panic and tells them that this demonic fire is cast by the witches under Garcia's command. He mounts his horse and rallies the soldiers to follow, because they're going to make it out of this place alive by passing through the flames. They zoom through those screaming flames, the knight yelling for everyone to keep moving, convinced they've got the divine stone of judgment backing them up. They push on through the firestorm. Buildings are crumbling left and right, but the Duke leaps over every obstacle like a hero. After finally getting out of the first wave of flames, he turns to reassure his soldiers they've made it, only to see them already swallowed by fire. He trembles, staring at the stone, wondering why the heck the divine stone of judgment didn't do a darn thing. He watches the city crumble around him, despair sinking in as he fears being crushed by the falling debris. Once taking a bird's-eye view, we see the entire Eagle City appears burned to a crisp. Finally, the Duke emerges alive from the gate, though his feet tremble and he's covered in bruises. Realizing the divine stone of judgment didn't protect them, he knows it wasn't the work of witches. While he collapses to his knees, a giant axe-wielding figure appears, and the Duke confirms to us that they are the Sand People. As he trembles for his fate, the man before him raises his axe and brutally chops his head off. Meanwhile, back with Timothy and his soldiers, both armies prepare for battle. As Grey Castle forces advance, Garcia's soldiers take their positions. The clash erupts into a brutal bloodbath for these unfortunate people. People from both sides are slashing and stabbing, total mayhem as a soldier tries to charge towards the queen, sitting all regal on her throne surrounded by those sand folks. She just raises her hand, doesn't even bother to say a word, and with a flick of her finger, those sand dudes rush forward and chop the horse's legs clean off in one go. Poor soldier hits the dirt, and before he can even blink, the sand guy swings his axe again, ending him with one brutal whack. Timothy's crew starts freaking out. There's another whole army staring them down. It's those folks from the southernmost region, where Lady Echo and our Captain Iron Axe hailed from. And since the southernmost region is full of oil, I have started to think that the inferno in the city was sparked by oil. Which is why it's no wonder Duke Francis couldn't snuff it out. These sand dwellers raise their axes high and charge straight at Timothy's army, swinging and stabbing with deadly precision, cutting through soldiers like they're slicing cucumbers. It's not a battle anymore. It's a one-sided massacre. The sand dudes dominate the whole scene with their sheer power. Lady just smiles, watching the chaos unfold, while Timothy's face shows pure terror and horror. He bites his nails, unable to think clearly. Ordering his knight to sound the horn and regroup, the knight grimly states it's already too late. Timothy keeps nervously biting his nails, urging his soldiers to retreat. He bolts in the opposite direction on his horse, still cocky even after biting the dust, convinced he'll get this sister next time. After that messy showdown between those two stubborn siblings fighting over territories like kids arguing over ice cream, we head back to the border town. And it looks like Prince Roland is gearing up to face Longsong Fortress. He's pretty sure Longsong is trying to strike now because they think the border town's at its weakest, right after the demon months. But our hero's been ready for this. There's not a ton of gunpowder in storage, but it should be enough to fend off the siege. He's wrestling with whether he'll move into Longsong Fortress once he wins. Well, probably not, because dealing with those trash nobles would be a nightmare. Better to stay cozy in his border town and develop it further with Longsong's resources. Just thinking about all the labor and skilled craftsmen he'll have after winning the war puts a smile on his face. He's itching to outwit Longsong's Duke Ryan in the war to squeeze every penny from him, and the thought alone has him drooling. Suddenly he senses something heading towards him, and lightning takes him down after crashing through the window, giving him a gut-busting blow right into his chest. After recovering, the boy eagerly asks for an update. Lightning happily reports that Longsong Fortress is advancing. The army marches forward, each knight gleaming in shining armor, while Duke Ryan leads the charge. One of his advisors, with sleepy eyes, suggests to Duke Ryan that they rest for the night before launching an attack on Border Town soon. Duke Ryan playfully retorts that he'll sleep in his large castle bed tonight, right after defeating Border Town. He jokes that a second-rate place like Border Town will be an easy conquest. However, Baldy beside him interjects, noting their soldiers have been marching endlessly and are exhausted, so he suggests delaying the attack would be wiser. Moreover, since the prince made it through the demon months, he must have something up his sleeve, so they should be cautious. But instead of grasping the situation, this orange-haired guy scoffs that those monsters are probably a weak-ass bunch who couldn't even jump over Prince Roland's half-assed wall. The Duke agrees, mentioning how Hermes was almost overrun by demonic hybrids this year, while Border Town just faced a few stray monsters and survived somehow. This guy believes that since Second Prince Timothy and Third Princess Garcia crippled each other's forces in Eagle City, and the city was burned, they both suffered heavy losses. He sees this as his chance to shine and unify the Western region under his rule. He orders his lackey to send a message to our hero, offering safe escort back to the king's city if he surrenders. The knight responds that Roland's troops are already in formation and armed, clearly showing they won't surrender just through talks. The Duke whips out his telescope only to spot a handful of soldiers standing there. Even Baldy looks puzzled by their scattered formation and less than impressive weapons. A grin spreads across the Duke's face after seeing those weaklings. With his simple hand gesture, the whole army starts marching forward to take on this small group. As they get closer, Vanner is shocked to see the sheer number of enemy soldiers. He shakes off his fear with a slap to his own cheeks, rallying his buddies not to sweat it. He reminds them that they've beaten demonic beasts, so they can handle these humans as well. As the enemy troops draw near, Vanner pumps up his crew with pep talk, firing them up to face the challenge head-on. Meanwhile, up on the hill, our prince feels pretty darn confident about his witch-empowered army, and he believes that winning this showdown is key to revolutionizing things up in this world. Lightning snaps him out of his daydreaming, saying the enemy is inching closer and lets the entire army know about the approaching threat. Prince Roland finally gets serious and immediately commands to open fire. Right on cue, the soldiers ignite their cannon strings, and cannonballs fire up immediately, coming straight at the frontline soldiers. As soon as they hit, soldiers scatter, not sure what the hell just hit them. These poor guys are terrified, thinking the prince just summoned thunder. Duke Ryan quickly dismisses their worries, telling them not to be fooled. He claims it's just a deception, just a noise, and no real damage was done. With that in mind, he orders the soldiers to simply charge at their enemy. But poor Duke Ryan's enthusiasm soon dies down when he sees another cannonball coming right at them. This time, it lands directly among the soldiers, taking everyone down like bowling pins. The soldiers relentlessly charge forward while cannonballs rain down like meteors from hell. Meanwhile, Duke Ryan still doesn't realize how deep in trouble he is, thinking that if they keep pushing, they'll break through the defense line and secure victory. As the knights dangerously approach, Vanner tells everyone to lower the angle of fire and load the grape shots. The soldiers quickly comply, and as the knights hover over their heads, the cannonball fires straight through a knight's belly, leaving him dead on the ground. Finally, these goons are absolutely terrified. As Sister Echo sings her anthem, the soldiers are filled with determination. They aim their guns and start shooting, hitting the soldiers in the head and chest. The poor soldiers immediately start running in the opposite direction to save their lives from these unknown things. Not gonna lie, I almost feel sorry for the enemy soldiers. They're getting butchered just because their leader is a thick-headed, arrogant, spoiled old man. While the leader grits his teeth in frustration, the orange-haired advisor claims they have no clue what kind of sorcery the prince is using and decides to retreat for now. Baldy agrees, saying they won't run out of firewood in these hills, so it's better to retreat. Meanwhile, the soldiers are doing their best to escape, but Duke Ryan immediately yells at them to stop retreating and even strikes down one of his own soldiers for running in the other direction. Despite all his pleas for his troops to stand their ground, the poor guys are just running for their lives to avoid being burned to a crisp in the scorching heat. Meanwhile, Prince Roland is quite happy with his victory, but it looks like the chief knight isn't thrilled about this kind of warfare. He says there's no honor in it. But Prince Roland immediately tells him not to feel down, because they still need to keep chasing after Duke Ryan. It seems like Carter will have to get used to this new era of warfare, as the Age of Knights gives way to a new kind of battle. As the prince rides on his ship, he appears happy with the battle's outcome, which turned out better than he expected. If all goes well with troop movements at night, the Iron Axe and Rifle Company can launch a surprise attack on Duke Ryan tomorrow morning. He's excited about leading the first army in the world backed by technologically powerful witches, each playing their respective roles. Suddenly, Anna appears on the scene and asks why he's sporting such a creepy smile. He quickly brushes it off, saying it's nothing, but she moves closer to wipe the drool off his face. However, the prince immediately snatches the handkerchief and decides to clean up himself. The girl reminds our awkward prince they should hit the hay since it's already late. He agrees, but once they reach one of the ship's rooms, he's flustered to find everyone chilling in the same room. He's totally thrown off, wondering if they're all supposed to sleep in the same room because, let's face it, even for a harem, this is a bit much. As their DIY ship sails through the bright night, everyone seems to be sleeping soundly. Among the witches, our hero can't help but notice a certain pair of distracting attributes no matter where he looks. The ladies are just a bit too close for comfort, and he can't shake off the unease. Suddenly, he spots Anna wide awake, watching him like a curious puppy. He gives her a charming smile and playfully pinches her nose, deciding to teach her a trick to fall asleep. He tells her to start counting sheep jumping through hoops. 1 sheep, 2 sheep, and keep counting until she falls asleep. The girl immediately complies and starts counting. As she continues counting softly, the prince finds himself wide awake. Now he's having an even harder time falling asleep. Nightingale seems awake too, sneaking glances at him. The next day finally arrives, and Prince Roland gets dressed. Lady Leaf appears still sleepy and asks how everyone slept. Well, it seems Anna had a rough night. She still appears to be counting sheep even now and is about to hit the 100,000th sheep. The next scene takes you at Duke Ryan's resting place, where he angrily throws his wineglass down and demands to know how Prince Roland got his hands on such high-end weapons. He drills his soldiers, asking about those catapult-like things, which had more range than they've ever seen in any weapon. In reply, the terrified knight admits he's clueless. All he heard was thunderous claps, and suddenly the knights hit some invisible wall, tearing them apart in an instant. The orange head suggests it might involve witches, but Duke Ryan calls it bullshit, reminding his soldiers they had the divine stone of judgment for protection, so there is no way witches could attack them. Deciding to retreat for now since they might lose this war, Duke Ryan plans to gather more troops back at Longsong. Once ready, he intends to block all trade on the Redwater River, knowing Border Town won't last a month without food supplies. He orders everyone to prepare to return to Longsong Fortress by tomorrow. But it looks like their plans hit a snag, as Sister Echo's singing rattles everyone in the tent to their core. Before they can react, a massive explosion rocks the entire area. Duke Ryan storms out, demanding to know how the enemy caught up to them without anyone noticing them last night. The knight quickly brings a spare horse, and Duke Ryan wastes no time hopping on, sprinting away before things get even worse. But soon he finds himself staring down gun barrels as Captain Iron Axe and his army stand before them. Instantly, our soldier pulls the trigger and the bullet hits Duke Ryan square in the chest. He topples from his horse, kissing the ground with his face. He looks worse for wear, his groggy eyes catching a glimpse of our hero marching forward with his team, and he loses consciousness before he can see them clearly. After a while, we make a grand entrance inside the Longsong Fortress. Local soldiers scramble as they see our party crashing their party. They seem more scared of the witches walking alongside our hero. Knight Carter reveals that the Duke's family tried escaping through the back door, but was captured by our first army. The prince lays down the law, saying all rebels and prisoners of war are to chill in the dungeon. Then, he gets this wild look and blurts out, "First things first, let's touch the corpse." Anna and Nightingale are creeped out to hear this and ask, "What kind of weird fetish is that?" The prince quickly backtracks, explaining he just meant looting the body, not getting all creepy with it. And so the first round of looting begins, and everyone dives into the loot. First up, they snag 300 shiny gold royals, followed by a special Clearwater port pearl necklace and some top-notch hides from the Wolf Heart Kingdom and Hermes' Godstones. But then they hit the jackpot, a hidden room. They press Y to open it, revealing a treasure trove filled with glittering gold items. The prince can't help but drool at the sight of so much wealth. Seeing chests stacked high with riches, he muses on how the lives of the rich are always so mundane. But he's not complaining, because he'd rather cry in a Ferrari than stress about paying rent any day. Suddenly, Knight Carter bursts onto the scene, revealing that Ambassador Petrov Hill of the Honeysuckle family has already arrived at the castle. The prince is taken aback by this news, not expecting him to arrive so early. The knight and the other ladies scramble to tidy up all the loot as quickly as possible. Outside the gate, Ambassador Hill reluctantly makes his way into the castle. He's visibly anxious, imagining our hero smugly demanding ransom money in the exchange of his father. But once he finally faces our hero, Ambassador Petrov Hill sees Roland smiling pleasantly. The prince casually assures him that his father wasn't harmed since he surrendered first. Grateful, the ambassador thanks him and offers to pay any ransom the Honeysuckle family can afford. However, Prince Roland surprises him by declining any money, asking instead for livestock and people. Petrov quickly offers up cows, sheep, and horses, but admits that the Honeysuckle family is short on people. Prince Roland gets specific, listing out needs for bricklayers, stonemasons, blacksmiths, farmers, and serfs. He rattles off a long list of goods, which also lists down the alternatives for other specific items. He smugly tells poor Petrov that 1,000 sheep and 300 craftsmen would be a fair exchange, given the worth of the Honeysuckle family head. Petrov finds himself thinking hard, realizing he's got just a day to come up with a solution. But then, the prince hits him with bad news. He's under a tight deadline. Prince Roland casually mentions that Petrov has only a short time to decide what to provide from the list. He's not planning to stick around Longsong for more than a week, and will be heading back to Border Town soon. Petrov is thrown off by this news. If the prince leaves, who will run Longsong? He doubts Duke Ryan's kids can handle it either. He humbly asks if the humble prince wants someone to look after Longsong Fortress.